Offshore, written by Don Corace. And Don is with us this evening. Thank you for joining us, Don.
Thank you, MJ. It's good to be here.
Thank you. You're actually out of Florida now, is that right?
Yes,
but
Naples, Florida.
But at one time you lived in Houston?
Yes, lived in Houston and West Texas, where in my younger days, I was a roughneck on oil rigs.
So for those of us who don't know, what is a roughneck?
Well, it's a worker on a rig. You've probably seen on TV the workers on the rig that connect pipe to drill the well and the other sundry jobs around the rig.
It doesn't sound very glamorous.
No, it's not very glamorous at all.
Why would anyone want to read a book about people that work on a rig?
Well, it's just not about people who work on a rig. The title, Offshore, revolves around the offshore drilling business, which is probably the most fascinating, most technologically advanced part of the energy industry. And it's set right here in Houston, and the book has a lot of scenes in Houston. You'll recognize a lot of the restaurants, and the Galleria is mentioned, and some of the other places. So it was a lot of fun, and Houston's a great city to set a book in, because Houstonians are great and just Texans are great.
You're actually, well, thank you. You're actually in Houston right now because there's a huge conference going on.
Correct. The Offshore Technology Conference is the largest oil conference in the world. It'll have over 50,000 participants, 2,500 exhibitors, and I'm taking a very active part in it, and I'm honored to do that.
And you're actually marketing your book through that organization?
No, not necessarily through the organization, but we will be at the OTC.
With a booth?
Well, we'll be in a couple different booths. We'll be attending a lot of the events before and after the OTC, so it's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, I've read your book, and I know why people want to read it. It's not because it's about roughnecks. It's because you've created two, you say they're an amalgamation of people you've met over the years working in the oil field. You've created two powerful families, the Drummonds and the Crofts, and these two families are battling over an oil field. Oil well reserve, oil in the ground. That's what they're battling over.
Correct.
And you've been able to do this by creating characters that are believable, likable, and I'm suspicious that possibly your main character, Clay, has a little bit of you in it.
Well, maybe a little bit from my younger days, but I wasn't quite the gambler or womanizer or drinker that he was. But we certainly, when I did the outline for the book and developed it over a period of time, I certainly used some very colorful people in the oil industry, and the industry is filled with them.
So are the Drummonds or the Crofts, are they modeled after any big oil family that we recognize?
Not necessarily. I think there are several families that probably fit into that mode, and what I did is I just took a little piece of one and the other and just put it together.
When did you start writing the book?
About 3 years ago.
So you had already left the oil field as a profession? The
yes.
Oil field?
Yes. I was involved with well, I was a roughneck, but I also bought and sold oil and gas leases, and I was involved in a number of other industries separate from the oil industry.
And so when you started writing this book, did you have a journal that you wrote from, or your memory? Or?
Well, I still kept in touch with a lot of the people in the oil industry. The Texans, you know, you make lifelong friends with Texans. And I kept in touch with the people, and then as the idea generated for the book, I got back in touch with those people, and they were very helpful to help me research the book. I spent time in the Gulf of Mexico on a drill ship, so it was an interesting experience.
When you were writing the book, did you visualize it becoming either a TV show or a movie?
I wrote it specifically for film, and in fact I've completed the screenplay. And I'm talking with a couple different producers, and I was just in New York recently talking to a studio executive about it. So that's going to be fun, and we'll just see where that goes.
Well, I have read the book, and I definitely saw it as a film, but I really thought a TV series, especially something like what used to be, I grew up on Dallas, which was based out of Dallas, but your characters are much more compelling than the characters that I saw in Dallas. But the Houston setting, do you think that would be possible to have it set in Houston still, or would it have to be?
We talked about that very thing a couple days ago, and in fact I was encouraged by them saying that Houston would be a good backdrop for the book. So I'm encouraged by that, because I think Houston will embrace it, Texans will embrace the book.
Definitely.
And I think it'll be good for the industry as well, because the word needs to get out on how fascinating the offshore drilling business is.
And it is fascinating, primarily because you bring in the stock market aspect. And for somebody like myself who's not trained in that, that was eye-opening, that there's actually this huge connection between the prices of the barrel and the stock market, and then what the family decisions are behind closed doors that actually affect the prices of those barrels dropping or raising. And how did you know? Did you research that, or how did you know that?
Well, it's just from general business experience, and also in interviewing a lot of the company executives that generate a lot of ideas. But I didn't want to get too far into a lot of the technicalities of securities and so forth. It's the characters that I really wanted to focus on. And,
Which you did.
And I think I was successful doing that. And I will say this, a lot of people that have read the book that are Houstonians appreciate the fact that I've said it here, and I'm encouraged by that.
I think that that was kind of fun for me too, because reading different streets that you put in, driving down Westheimer, and knowing exactly where the different scenes were in Houston made it fun to read for me as a Houstonian. But I also think a lot of people pass through Houston, since we're an international city, that it would relate to anybody. It doesn't matter if you're in California or New York. It's something that could be read anywhere in our country, or on the globe for that matter.
Sure.
Such an international city. So did you self-publish this book, or did you pick a publisher?
No, the publisher is Emerald Ink Publishing. They're based here in Houston. They're moving their operations to Little Rock, Arkansas. I had the book circulated among a number of literary agents in New York, and I didn't get the deal that I really wanted. So I met the publisher, Chris Carson, at a conference. And in fact, it was connected somewhat with the ABC Cooperative, which we'll be talking about.
Yes.
And he and I struck up a friendship, and I decided to publish with him.
Did you choose hardback over paperback for a reason?
Yeah, I always thought, just for personal preference, I always liked hardcover first. I always buy hardcover, and a lot of people were trying to encourage me to do the paperback, but I decided to go with the hardcover, and I'm glad I did it.
It's a beautiful book. The picture on the front, you had that photographed from a rig?
Actually, it was, the picture itself was purchased from a French nature photographer, and then we had superimposed on it a rig.
Because there's a boat down here also.
Yeah, that's a drill ship, yes.
Oh, that's a drill ship. Can y'all see the cover? Well, I'm very inspired by the fact that you're already in talks about having a possible movie made out of this. So do you have any main characters picked out? Well,
some people have suggested that Clay,
yes,
the hero of the book, should be Matthew McConaughey, Ashley Judd for Kate,
wow,
and Robert Duvall or Paul Newman for DL, and then for Ramsey Croft, the bad guy, Alec Baldwin.
Wow. Very cool.
Yeah, so I like those choices.
And this is your first book?
Yes.
And then the potential for your first book to go into a movie is real?
Yes.
And I saw a sequel on this, but you're saying that that's not necessarily the case.
No, I finished it with the purpose of having a sequel and a prequel. The characters are still alive in my head, so there's still plenty of stories left.
And they are wonderful characters. Thank you for writing the book, and thank you for being my guest today.